Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I'm going to go over all the information we have for the recently revealed Borderlands spin-off game called Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Now before we get into the video, only 6% of people that watch my videos are subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with all of my videos. Now I want to go over all the information we currently have, which isn't a ton. Then I want to go over some thoughts I have about it and some different theories I have for some parts of the game. Now, Tiny Tina's Wonderland is a spin-off Borderlands game that will be in the same vein of the Borderlands 2 DLC, but it won't be a continuation or a prequel of that story. It will be its own disconnected story that will feature some characters from other Borderlands games, but it will mostly be new characters. And some of the main characters for this game are actually going to be played by some pretty big name actors. So some of the main voice actors include Andy Samberg, Wanda Sykes, Will Arnett, and then Ashley Birch, which plays Tiny Tina. The description they gave for the game is, in this epic high fantasy take on the looter shooter genre, players can create and customize their own multi-class heroes as they loot, shoot, slash, and cast their way through outlandish monsters and treasure-filled dungeons on a quest to stop the tyrannical Dragon Lord. Bullets, magic, and broadswords collide across a chaotic fantasy world brought to life by the utterly unpredictable Tiny Tina, who makes the rules, changes the world on the fly, and guides players on their journey. Described as a fully standalone game, Wonderlands features co-op for up to 4 players and repeatable endgame content. And this is actually a majority of the information that we have, but there is quite a lot to unpack just in the description. So first off, we have multi-class heroes, which I think they slightly elaborated on. So you can essentially put together what you're playing with whatever different classes you want. And we're not sure how many classes there will be, how many you'll be able to combine, if you'd be able to take pieces from every class in the game, or if you would say just be able to take some stuff from 2 different classes. We're not sure, but this does play more into kind of the fantasy of what this is, because the DLC that this is kind of taking inspiration from was essentially Dungeons and Dragons in the Borderlands universe, and Dungeons and Dragons does have multi-classes as well, so it definitely is playing more into that fantasy side. And they also mentioned that you're able to loot, shoot, slash, and cast, and this is confirmed that there will be shooting and weapons like every Borderland has had, and it will be heavily loot focused like every other Borderlands, but you'll also be having melee weapons and spells. So similar to the multi-classing, it will be playing much more into the fantasy RPG side of Borderlands with things like swords and being able to cast spells. Now, one of the things I'm most excited for this game, besides the possible customization with multi-classes and now having melee weapons and spells, is that they're specifically saying that this game will have repeatable endgame content, which, if I'm not mistaken, no Borderlands has ever specifically stated for the release of the game. And most Borderlands games don't really have anything extra in the endgame until there's other DLCs or other additions to the game. Specifically talking about Borderlands 3, there wasn't really anything to the end game of it besides mayhem levels, which weren't good at all, and then later down the line when you started getting raids. So having the game be built with repeatable end game content in mind, I think is going to be a massive plus for this game. And I'm actually more excited for this game than I was for Borderlands 3, and that's due to a few different things. And first, just the possible customization that will be in this game. Because first off, we have the customizable multi-classes, and then we have the addition of melee weapons, and then we have the bigger focus on using spells and essentially playing more as a mage with a more fantasy playstyle. And the second thing is the main story and campaign of the game. Because this is being built and inspired from the Borderlands 2 DLC, I think this has a much better chance of being a much better story, especially with how creative they can be with this idea. And I think that was easily the weakest part of Borderlands 3, was just a main story. Most people really didn't like it overall. So making a much better overall story and main campaign will bode very well for this game. And the final thing is the developers already mentioning that they are gonna have repeatable endgame content on launch, because that is the second weakest thing for Borderlands 3 in my opinion, because besides the lackluster mayhem levels, there was no endgame content for Borderlands 3 on launch, and no endgame content was added until the first raid was added, and then it was just that. So having some endgame content right when the game comes out can definitely add a much healthier long-term lifespan for the game. And there's one more thing I wanted to mention, and it's a fantasy I've had since I read a part of the description for the game, and that is a fantasy world brought to life by the utterly unpredictable Tiny Tina, who makes the rules and changes the world on the fly. Now, with this being combined with them saying there will be repeatable endgame content on release, it got me thinking that they could definitely have some endgame content that's either procedurally generated or that is in some way random. So say the possibility of some roguelike game mode or randomized dungeons or something along those lines, because they have all this creative possibilities with Tiny Tina pretty much being the dungeon master in a game we're playing, and we're playing as the characters in that game they're playing. So she can essentially just change whatever she wants. She could just pop up new enemies somewhere. She could just change the rules on the fly to make things different on this run, spawn in a boss at this random area, or just do tons of crazy things. And that would play really well into having some type of endgame content along those lines. No idea if that's going to happen, but that was just a theory I had from reading some of the descriptions of the game. So that is pretty much all I wanted to go over for Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So subscribe to keep up with all of my videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this new Borderlands game. And thanks for watching.